Hello, everybody, and welcome to this video where we're going to be doing the first part of the Roominghouse Madrigals like a month late. So, Bukowski Book Club. And for those of you who haven't seen my video yet on why white guys don't read, here's a book you can get at a bookstore written by a white guy. So stupid. I'll link it somewhere. That's fun. Me and Shaylin Marks have been doing the Bukowski podcast, and we did 2 episodes. And then I don't want to take away the big news, but like she had 2 major life changes happen that are both really cool. Like basically at the exact same time. And then I was in the process of moving. So the long-awaited episode on Poems and Insults, I believe, is coming, but I have to get situated first. She's actually, I think, waiting on me now, but we'll figure this out eventually. But anyway, the Roominghouse Madrigals, this is the first part. Well, actually, let me go over this stuff with you too. So right here, when you open a Bukowski book, it'll tell you a bunch of other books that you could get by him. Now, in the Bukowski Book Club, we've been going through the poetry books put out by Black Sparrow Press in order. So I'll put the playlist up here somewhere. And these are the books that we've already done. So The Days Run Away Like Wild Horses Over the Hills, Mockingbird Wish Me Luck, Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame, Love is a Dog from Hell, Play the Piano Drunk Like a Percussion Instrument Until the Fingers Begin to Bleed a Bit, Dangling in the Turmforsha, I think is how you say it, Turmforsha, whatever. And then we did War All the Time, and then You Get So Alone at Times It Just Makes Sense, and now we're doing this one. And probably after this one, we're going to do Septuagenarian Stew. But besides that, I also have a playlist of me doing Bukowski chapbooks. And so the ones that I've done with that, which is in another playlist that I'll add over here. This is just in case you're coming into this new here. But Flower Fist and Bestial Whale, Long Shot Poems for Broke Players, Run with the Hunted. I actually don't remember, but there will be a list of some shit somewhere. Okay, so anyway, so that was that. Yeah, so this is early poems from 1946 to 1966. And typically how we do this is we will take a page out of the table of contents, and that'll be the first section that we do. So this one is basically page 13 to 76. Okay. And then next month, or not next month, but next week, if I could do it like that, we would do the next page and then blah, 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 whatever. So you guys see what I'm saying. So what I'm going to do now is just read for you some of my favorite poems from this book. Because the thing about Roominghouse is that he didn't hit his stride until much later, obviously. But in this period, I don't want to say this is his try-hard period, but he cared a lot more about being accepted, and everyone's going to say he didn't, and he would probably say he didn't. But he tried to do things that his contemporaries were doing. And which is fine. You get inspired to do stuff. You get inspired by lines. It's fine, whatever. But it wasn't until like the late 70s and through the 80s where he kind of stopped doing that, or he started doing it less and less because acceptance didn't matter to him anymore. But this was before he was anything. But a lot of these poems are poems that end up in a bunch of collections all over the place because these were published all over the place. And then these were kind of like his like hits, like not all of them, but some of them. So when he would do readings, he would read a lot of these. So these became kind of staples. Not all of them, but some of them, like the ones we're going to go over here. So that's just a little background on that. But if you look at just like how the things are set up on the page, it's very different than what he would end up doing. I mean, there's definitely some good stuff in here. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I don't like this book. I do. Okay, so, and I read this on one of the podcast episodes, but The Genius of the Crowd. It's one of his more popular poems. There's enough treachery, hatred, violence, absurdity in the average human being to supply any given army on any given day, and the best at murder are those who preach against it, and the best at hate are those who preach love, and the best at war, finally, are those who preach peace. Those who preach God need God. Those who preach peace do not have peace. Those who preach love do not have love. Beware the preachers. Beware the knowers. Beware those who are always reading books. Beware those who either detest poverty or are proud of it. Beware those quick to praise, for they need praise in return. Beware those quick to censure, they are afraid of what they do not know. Beware those who seek constant crowds, they are nothing alone. Beware the average man, the average woman, beware their love. Their love is average, seeks average, but there is genius in their hatred. There is enough genius in their hatred to kill you, to kill anybody. Not wanting solitude, not understanding solitude, they will attempt to destroy anything that differs from their own. Not being able to create art, they will not understand art. They will consider their failure as creators only as a failure of the world. I was just talking about that in that other thing. Not being able to love fully, they will believe your love incomplete. And then they will hate you, and their hatred will be perfect, like a shining diamond, like a knife, like a mountain, like a tiger, like hemlock, their finest art. All right. This one is called Sundays Kill More Men Than Bombs. Due to weekend conditions, and although there's too much smog, everything's jam, and it's worse than mass down in a storm, you can't go anywhere. And if you do, they're all staring through glass windows or waiting for dinner, and no matter how bad it is, not the glass, the dinner, they'll spend more time talking about it than eating it. And that's why my wife got rid of me. I was a bore, and I didn't know when to smile, or rather worse, I did, but didn't. And one afternoon, with people diving into pools and playing cards and watching carefully shaven TV comedians in starched white shirts and fine neckties, kidding about what the world had done to them, I pretended a headache. And they gave me the young lady's bedroom. She was about 17. And hell, I crawled beneath her sheets and pretended to sleep, but everybody knew I was a cornered fake. But I tried all sorts of tricks. I tried to think of Wilde behind bars, but Wilde was dead. I tried to think of him shooting a lion or walking down Paris streets, medallion with his wild buddies, the whores swooning to their beautiful knees. But all I did was twist within her young sheets, and from the headboard, shaking in my nervous storm, several trinkets fell upon me. Elephants, glass dogs with seductive stares, a young boy and girl carrying a pail of water, but nothing by Bach or conducted by Ormandy, and I finally gave it up, went into the John, tried to piss. I knew I would be constipated for a week, and then I walked out, and my wife, a reader of Plato and E. E. Cummings, ran up and said, "Ooh, you should have seen Boo Boo at the pool. He turned backflips and side flips, and it was the funniest thing you've ever seen." I think it was not much later that that man came to our third floor apartment about 7 in the morning and handed me a summons for divorce. And I went back to bed with her and said, "Don't worry, it's all right." And she began to cry, cry, cry. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," I said. "Please stop. Remember your heart." But that morning when she left, about 8 o'clock, she looked the same as ever, maybe even better. I didn't even bother to shave. I called in sick and went down to the corner bar. Old man dead in a room. This thing upon me is not death, but it's as real. And as the landlords, full of maggots, pound for rent, I eat walnuts in the sheath of my privacy and listen for more important drummers. It's as real as the broken boned sparrow, cat-mouthed, uttering more than mere miserable argument. Between my toes I stare at clouds, at seas of gaunt sepulture, and scratch my back and form a vow as my lovely woman, wives and lovers, break the engines into steam of sorrow to be blown into eclipse. Bone is bone, but this thing upon me as I tear the window shades and walk caged rugs, this thing upon me like a flower and feast, believe me, is not death and it's not glory. And like Quixote's windmills, makes a foe turned by the heavens. Against one man, this thing upon me, great God, this thing upon me, crawling like a snake, terrifying my love of commonness. Some call art, some call poetry. It's not death, but dying will solve its power. And as my gray hands drop a last desperate pen in some cheap room, they will find me there and never know my name, my meaning, nor the treasure of my escape. I cannot stand tears. There were several hundred fools around the goose who broke her leg, trying to decide what to do, when the guard walked up and pulled out his cannon and the issue was finished, except for a woman who ran out of a hut claiming he killed her pet. But the guard rubbed his straps and told her, "Kiss my ass, take it to the president." The woman was crying, and I cannot stand tears. I folded my canvas and went further down the road. The bastards had ruined my landscape. This poem, Horse on Fire, I remember I read it because it had something to do with one of the chapbooks that Bukowski did, and it had something to do with Ezra Pound and Sherry Martinelli, but I can't remember what. So there'll be a video around here somewhere. Bring straight things like a horse on fire. Ezra said, "Write it so as a man on the west coast of Africa could understand it." And then he proceeded to write the cantos, full of dead languages, newspaper clippings, and a love scene from St. Liz. Bring straight things and birdlight, the terror of a mouse, grass arms, great stone heads, and reading Canto 90. He put the paper down, as did. Both their eyes were wet, and he told her, "Among the greatest love poems ever written." Ezra, there are many kinds of traitors, of which the political are the least, but the self-appraisal of poetry and love has proved more fools than rebels. And then I don't know about this poem, but it's the last poem in our section here. It's called The Dogs on page 76. And this is the Black Sparrow edition, not the Echo edition, so my page numbers might be a bit off. Certainly sought one quiet time the horses of war shot with their broken legs, air sprayed with the languor of walking through a small neighborhood at 6 p.m. to smell pork chops frying, the arrayed sensibility of men living through light and sound and rain. If there be rain or snow, if there be snow and pain, living through wives and children and the sensibility of fire when it is cold, but the dogs want a part of us. They want all of us. And coming in from the factory to a bug-infected room in East Kansas City is not enough. But who the enemy is, we are not quite sure. Only this morning, combing my hair, one eye on the clock, wondering if another drink would do, I think I saw them. So anyway, so that's it. And so the next time we do this, it will be